Hello and welcome to another episode of When Life Gives You Lemons podcast, sponsored by Dayspring Bank, where we hear stories from local entrepreneurs of how they turn lemons into lemonade. I'm your host, Morgan Maly, and today I am joined with a very accomplished woman in the marketing, communications, and PR world, Makayla McMorris. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here with you, Morgan. I'm a fan, huge fan of yours. I think we met, like a year or so ago? Mm-hmm. And I think we had a good time. Like immediately I was drawn to your energy and your connection. So I'm happy to be here again with you.
Yeah, thank you. Makayla sat down and had a little workshop with the Creighton's women's basketball team and volleyball team, where we got to see her in action, where she presented kind of how to build your brand and the importance of networking, and she told us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm going to throw it back to you. I know you're supposed to be interviewing me. However, what was the one piece of advice that was shared that day that you still hold true?
Networking is everything. We were
That's
discussing a little bit before the show, and I see that in the real world a little bit more now.
Yep.
A little
You
bit.
got to build that network. It's important, and and once you do that, it's long lasting, especially if you make a huge impact up front. So, good.
Yeah. Well, Makayla, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your educational background, and what kind of sparked you into getting into the entrepreneurial world?
Yeah. So, yes, Makayla McMorris, obviously, owner, CEO of Moxie16. It's a boutique communication and marketing firm here in Omaha, Nebraska, that was established in March of 2023. We started working a little before then, but that was kind of when we went live. We hit the ground running in terms of clients and support, and it was due to the networking that I'm talking about. And it's been good ever since. I have not looked back. However, I also understand the importance of your past and paying homage to the past. And I've had a lot of great opportunities prior to starting Moxie16 that has led me to the success that I've had so far. And I might need to knock on wood because I want to keep that going. But Moxie16, the 16 stands for 2016. That's when I really knew that eventually I would start this firm. Moxie obviously is grit, grind, hustle, and just good work. And it's, women, femme. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed having those two things come together. 16 is also a positive and brings about energy and new change. So put them together, and that's where you got Moxie16. Before then, I was at KETV and UNO. I left UNO in 2022 after a pandemic, being on call 24/7. In the communication world, typically those that are in communication and PR are on call 24/7. So with young kids, a son and a daughter who are very active, I felt like I was present, but not mentally present, if that makes sense. So I thought the timing was right because I want to be a part of their lives more than I was before. But I learned so much from being at UNO. Obviously, NIL and all those kind of things were just rolling out at the time. Yep. So yeah, I've learned a lot from my past, and that has shaped my future.
That's awesome. I appreciate the description behind the title of your name and your business. I think just talking to you that those qualities are very, very present in how you conduct yourself, and I'm sure your business as well. Where were you at in 2016 that you were like, okay, I kind of want to venture into, I know my future holds something new for me?
So I'll say this isn't my first rodeo in entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. I owned a business called Wrap Me Slender early on in 2008, 7 and 8. It was a day spa. niche though. So we've specialized in mineral body wraps. So, but yeah, it was a year prior to Bush declaring recession. And that business is a want-based business, not a need-based. So I learned a ton. So I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And I couldn't shake that when I left that business behind. It was a franchise, and moved back into what I knew best, which is media and marketing. And so I realized in 2016 that I really needed to try again. Taking that fear from starting once in my 20s and taking what I learned through those, I wouldn't even call them failures. I would call it lessons. Taking that and then going back into marketing and media was so beneficial because I learned the business side of those that I was working with on how to build out, support, how marketing works, how it's beneficial to the business, how PR can really be beneficial across all sectors. But in 2016, to answer your question, it was a moment when I was at home, and I remember this till this day, and I said to myself, I want to actually show my daughter, who at the time was 2, what it is to be a boss. Hopefully that doesn't get aired out. But she is such a go-getter, and my son, I've already got him started with his own entrepreneurial spirit. He has his own business. It's called Sneak a Snack. We could talk about that later. But obviously I was doing great things, but I wanted it to be my own. And as I was sitting there looking at her, and I was like, I want her to see me in that space. And it's been beautiful to watch her be a part of this journey, because they're employees of mine. Right. They don't know it, but they work for me.
So with you working at UNO and learning from your experiences there, what was your biggest challenge, and what led you to grow and develop Moxie16?
So I think the biggest thing for any entrepreneur is leaving your stability. And UNO was stable. I mean, it's work. You go to work every day, you do the work, put your head down, and you meet goals that has been set forward for you from the organization that you work for. So the biggest challenge for me was really taking that leap of faith and betting on myself, and not having that support system from an organization standpoint. So that, I think, was the biggest fear. And I think when I say 2016, hence Moxie16, it took me some time. I mean, I didn't start it until 2023.
Right.
But I think it was the right time for me, and the knowledge that I gained from being in the position that I was in at UNO as the Chief Communication and Marketing Officer during a pandemic, civil unrest, two chancellors, and then also kind of what would be considered a merger between UNO and UNMC. That was a very challenging time, but I was groomed to be in that position. However, all of the challenges that I dealt with in that role really helped me to understand the top of an organization all the way down to the bottom of an organization, and that everybody has a voice. And so through that process, I felt like I was my biggest challenge, is getting out of my way and supporting myself, and knowing that I have the capabilities of doing the work without the support system of an organization behind me.
Yeah.
What's your biggest challenge right now?
Right
as
now?
a senior at Creighton?
Yeah.
And a phenomenal basketball player.
I think the biggest challenge for anyone at my stage of life is figuring out what's next and what we're called to do. Luckily for me in my basketball career, that I have that opportunity in front of me to explore whatever comes in the next 6-8 months, with that being the WNBA, trying to get into some training camps or play overseas, maybe next fall.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think so. I have that as my next step.
Okay.
And then once the ball stops bouncing, it's kind of discerning what I want to go into in my professional career. I'm interested in like medicine or sports science or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, lean into your talents, but also, I'm going to go back to it, your network, because right now you have the opportunity to utilize not only your university, which is a great university with a great span of folks across the nation that have been a part of the Creighton University brand, but also now Dayspring. I'm sure that they have some connections and some people that could support you in your journey moving forward after college is over.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I think that's part of the beauty of being in such an interconnected web right now, especially in college, and that's part of what the NIL space provides for athletes.
I do wish I had that when I was coming up, because it is a privilege, and make sure that in this space you take full advantage of those connections and those opportunities that are coming your way, but also make sure it's passion for you, you know? So Dayspring sounds like a great organization and bank, and I love the tagline, make lemonade out of lemons.
Yep.
Because I think most people like myself has a lot of stories about how you were able to persevere and make lemonade out of lemons.
Absolutely. And when you were just saying how you felt safe at UNO and wanted to venture out and to do your own thing, who did you have mentors ahead of you that took that same leap, or how did you navigate that space?
Well, you're right. I definitely want you to have mentors, and you definitely need those people that are your cheerleaders and advocates when you're not in the room. But I had multiple people that were in my ear saying, "You got this." One of them, and I know it's somewhat of a competitor, but Trevor Alberts was a great person for me, who supported me along with Doug Ewald, my mom, some of my team members too, that were at UNO, really kind of supported the idea of me venturing out. The person that was in my role prior to me, she's also left and started her own firm. But it was through those conversations that really allowed me the support I needed and the courage I needed to make it actually happen. Because I don't think I could have done it on my own. I'll say also my kids and my husband. I mean, my husband has been one of my biggest cheerleaders, and my kids, I would say, are a close second. So
that's awesome.
Shout out to Kenny and McKinley and Kenny.
You mentioned Trev Alberts previously. What work did you do for the Husker Athletic Department, or how did you get connected there?
Yeah. So I actually had the opportunity to work closely with Trev Alberts at UNO before he left. And so he had an opportunity to understand the work that I was doing alongside Doug Ewald, who also went over to Husker Athletics. When I made the announcement that I was going out on my own, they immediately reached out to me and said, "Hey, we've got some work that we'd like you to do." And it was really around the stadium expansion at UNO. Obviously, that is going to be a touchy subject, as those that have tickets and seat holders and different various challenges that were coming up. I was put in place to help kind of navigate that from a communication and PR standpoint. And so it afforded me an opportunity to take a deep breath and know that based on the work, and I'll go back to the word network, that it was easy for me to roll into that space knowing that I had put in those positive deposits and showed the work prior to gaining that contract.
Cool.
So I think you also mentioned NIL. And as I was rolling into that work, we were also kind of tasked with kind of supporting the NIL space and understanding that together. Because really, honestly, NIL just kind of became popular about 2 to 3 years ago, where people were like, okay, I'm starting to understand the idea of it. How does that work? How does that benefit the students? And how do we manage that? And I would tell any entrepreneur or student that is in that space to really be mindful of what your brand says before a business gets to you and goes to your website or your social media pages, because you're not only representing yourself anymore, you're representing a whole brand, which to me is critical if someone was to go back deep enough to find something that maybe meant absolutely nothing. Yeah. But in context, it means everything, right? And this is where PR comes into play, because I'd rather do good PR than clean up PR, right? So that goes along with my support to Husker Athletics.
Yeah, cool. You sound just like my mom right there.
I did.
I can't tell you how many times.
I prefer to be auntie, is what I've been told, that I'm everybody's auntie. So.
Like how many times when I was younger and like getting recruited, she's like, you can't post. You just have to be very, very mindful.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Have you done a good job of that?
I'd like to think so.
I think so, because you're doing what your mom set you out to do, and you've got some NIL stuff going on, so this is good. I'm glad you listened. Now my son, I don't know if he's going to listen. He likes to do it the hard way, so that's good, Morgan, that you're actually listening to the advice and the wisdom that your parents have kind of laid for you.
Yeah. As a young person, what do you think is the best way to handle your public image, and maybe when you're trying to get that job interview, or like what's the best way, do you think, to like get that out?
I think with public image, it's to the point that we both made, is being mindful of what you're putting out and how do you want people to perceive you. So if your goal is to be perceived as a party girl and one note, or a guy, just think about the diversity of what you're posting. Are you passionate about humanity? Find something that keeps you excited, but also has a cause. People love a good cause. People love to see that you are not just one note. So diversifying what you're putting out there and making sure that it's authentic to who you are. Because people nowadays, we're pretty savvy when it comes to like brand images. And if it's not authentic, it doesn't come off as genuine, and people will move on to the next. There's so much to see and do that you want to keep them captivated, and how you do that is being authentic to yourself.
What do you look for? What makes a person stand out when they apply to work for you? Yeah.
So, great question, Morgan. I think that is one of it could be a challenge, but I also enjoy bringing on great people that have good energy. I think it's important to find people that have a hunger and an opportunity to want to learn. And also, I'm getting older. I'm also looking for somebody that could teach me something, I don't subscribe to the fact that I know it all, and I'm always open to learning new things. So I think there's a way to learn from the old school and learn from the new school, because if you do it together collectively, you can come up with something pretty magical, right? So I prefer to always find that spark in someone's eye that seems like they are really into what I'm doing and how they can help make it better. If I can get that from someone, like, hey, and give them that same skin in the game that I have, I'll rock with them until the wheels fall off.
That's awesome. Do you oftentimes see that spark in person in like an interview, or is there a way that people can kind of make that known in their application, or how does that happen?
It's interesting to me. In my previous position, I actually hired more than I do now because I'm still small and I prefer it to be that way for now. But before, I would see someone, a waiter or a waitress, or someone who is at a bank teller, who just has this go-get-em, exciting attitude, meets me with a smile, draws me into them, or makes my day better, because I think it goes back to the relationships. How does someone make you feel when you walk in or have a good service? You're like, man, that service was awesome. I like that person. I'm going to tip them more. Because that's not something you can teach. You just have it, right? And I think you can teach them the work. You can teach them how to be savvy in PR, marketing, communication, but you can't teach energy. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah, that's a great lesson, especially for me, or any young person trying to find their way.
Yeah,
anyone's watching at any point.
That's
right.
You just never know.
Yeah.
You hear those stories where someone left like a $1 million tip or $1,000 tip because they had the best service. Imagine what you would do if you just met people with good energy all the time. Somebody's going to find you if you don't find them first, right? Mm-hmm. So just be mindful. I love that word. Be mindful of what you're doing. Like I tell my son, and I have to use this as an example, he gets up, he's an athlete, basketball, loves the sport, but his energy is so tired, and I know you're tired, but you got to find joy in every day. Find that nugget, give somebody a compliment, make their day better. It's always reciprocal, because if you do something for somebody, you can't help but to feel the energy back.
This last question is a two-parter. First, what was the best piece of advice that you've ever received? And second, what would you tell a new entrepreneur trying to figure things out in this modern age?
I love it. I love that question. I think the best piece of advice I've received is don't let fear paralyze you. Because you can stay comfortable and be okay, but you never know your possibilities if you don't go for it, right? The same applies for entrepreneurs. If you wake up every morning or every day, you're thinking about what could I do? How can I be great? Or what can I do that makes me stand out? Because you only get one life. If you have that spirit and you want to move forward with it, don't let fear be the reason why you don't do it. And I say do it early. I don't think you should wait. I think, and I go back, I have to say my son again and my daughter. I'm teaching them early. Like, you can be an entrepreneur right now. They're 10, or I'm sorry, my daughter just turned 11 and 15. And they both have the bug to start a business. My son has a sneak-a-snack business where he sells snacks at school because everybody's hungry. And we've made him a logo. He has stickers. He puts it on all the snacks. And he loves it. So now he's got more questions. Can I have multiple opportunities? What else can I do? And so I really like the fact that I would say don't wait, because the sooner the better, especially once your responsibilities to continue to grow. Because as you get older, you just get more responsibilities.
Right.
Yeah. So it's easier to stay stable.
Cool. Well, that answered both questions. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me,
Learned
Morgan.
a lot from you.
I am excited to see how you grow and where you go next. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for your team. And just remember to always focus on what makes you happy. Because if you do that, you'll probably more than likely be successful.
That's awesome. Awesome advice. Well, that wraps up our third episode of the When Life Gives You Lemons podcast, sponsored by Dayspring Bank. Once again, I'm your host, Morgan Maly, and thank you very much, Makayla McMorris, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.